Kia ora. Welcome to the yet to be named discussion show. My name is Troy Gerber. I'm a Microsofty person who is based out of Auckland in beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand. I work for a company called Fusion 5 and I'm a Microsoft specialist on everything 365. And myself and my good bud Josh, who's going to introduce himself, thought we'd have a bit of a discussion today about the most tumultuous topic on the planet.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Yeah, so Josh Butcher with Fusion 5 as well. Pretty much SharePoint kind of is my specialty, expanding onto Microsoft 365 and all the weird and wonderfuls that come along with it.
So, Josh and myself were having a bit of a discussion the other day over a cup of coffee, and we were talking about the most unexplained thing on the planet, which is just past the origin of the species and what is the meaning of life, and that is where do you actually store files in Office 365? And during the discussion, we just sort of cut short and thought we'd rather do it on video so we could get a bit of a better a grasp of it was where exactly are you supposed to store information? And let's talk files in Office 365. Um, and I think the area where we sort of jumped up and went had immediate different opinions was OneDrive. So I'm a big
Yes.
OneDrive fan, and I think OneDrive is a great place to store files.
Well,
Um,
I mean, it is prefixed with one.
one.
So you'd think it would be the one place.
So what do you,
Does make sense.
what do you think is not necessarily the best place to store files, Josh?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting discussion because looking around the traps, I mean, many people have put their opinions up, especially Matt Wade has got quite a bit of material on us. And really, the concept that I take is my stuff and our stuff, and I think I've seen this before. So, what's purely mine goes into OneDrive. What is ours, as in our business, kind of goes into the appropriate location where other people have access inherently.
Yeah.
So, what do I mean by that? I guess I'm thinking, hey, we've got Microsoft's Teams team for our department, or maybe our um, working group or project. And in that sense, if I'm if I have some material information that is pertinent to that, I could put it into my OneDrive, absolutely. Um, but in order to ensure that kind of the people in the team now have access easily being the operative word, and the and any future members, it's I kind of gravitate towards putting it in that location of Teams slash SharePoint area.
I guess for me, the thing that I've always thought of OneDrive for, and maybe it's because I'm really old and come from the days of the G drive and the H drive, the desktop, is I've always saw OneDrive as a replacement for those spaces, and then the need sort of arose from um, people. Let's go back a little. I love stories, so let's go back 10 years, 12 years back. If you store something on your desktop, it was gone forever. If anything happened to your computer,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
There were certain
and
areas that were just not backed up, and that was on
yeah,
you.
and I think for me, as OneDrive came along, especially OneDrive for Business and it matured, and let's not pretend like OneDrive for Business was always a perfect solution. It was fraught with issues in the early days, but I always thought it as a place where it is that one place where I can store my stuff that I would need to be working with until I got to a point where it no longer became part of the thing I was working on, maybe that draft version or maybe that idea. And then it moved into its final resting place, which might be a SharePoint team site or perhaps a third party repository. I have no idea. I always thought as that, and I think recently as well, within the last year or so, with the ability to have your desktop as well as your documents and pictures automatically part of the OneDrive backup. OneDrive I think almost stopped for me being just a storage space, but became my virtual environment. If I lost a PC, I could walk into local PC shop, buy something, and log on,
Get
and
up and going again.
yeah, and I was ready to go.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
No,
so I think, yeah, definitely, definitely definitely a place. But what do you think is the underlying reason why, in your opinion, why OneDrive is, let's say, badly used or misused?
yeah. Okay. So I guess like going on the age reference thing, I'm up there too, and the one of the old theories used to be hit by the bus theory,
Mm,
right? I don't use that nowadays. I guess maybe it's a PC thing. I don't know. Maybe just it went out of flavor. But that's part of the concept. Really, the underlying concept for me is going. I'm I'm employed to do one or more roles in the business. As part of those roles, I am involved in processes with people, and as part of that, most of the things I make most of the documents I make are pertaining to that. And so I guess it was always my default to store it in a location where people would just immediately have access that needed it. The bonus for me is that I didn't have to think about it later to move it. But like I said, there's different schools of thought. Like maybe you know, I use OneDrive if I'm about to shut down my computer,
yeah,
definitely. And I go, I need to save stuff, and I need to save it now, and I don't want to think about where it needs to go. Absolutely use it for that every time. And then when I start my computer back up, I go, where did I need to put that file? And then I try to put it there. But I worked with somebody, and they said, like, I might think that somebody might misinterpret the current state of the document that I'm working on and presume that it's done, but it's not, and then have too many questions, and but I've got more to put in. So therefore, keep them on OneDrive until I'm ready for that
yeah.
time to occur. I'm like, okay. I mean, everybody's different.
I agree with you. I think one of the and maybe use this as they're talking about. I think one of the problems and why OneDrive, and not just OneDrive, but anything, Google Drive, Dropbox, probably one of the biggest culprits. One of the reasons why those products exist and work so well has a lot to do with something that you and I have a bit of a passion for, and that's enterprise content management.
Mm,
And enterprise content management, the general rule is it works well, or only works well if you have a document lifecycle management process in place, or if you have at least a reasonable set of rules that say where documents going to live at some stage. And if I have to take a personal experiences I've had over different organizations, both IT and non, is the reason why I used to like keeping stuff in my personal drive, be it OneDrive or an old G drive on the map drive, was because I didn't always know where it had to go. Sometimes it was like,
that's
where does that go? So is a customer proposal I'm drafting on belong in CRM, or does it belong in the customer folder in SharePoint, or does it need to go into a somewhere else on the drive? And it was just easier to just keep it in my personal secure space where I knew where it was,
mm.
and if somebody asked for it, I can give it to them. And I was wondering your thoughts on that. Do you think that there is still enough attention actually given to making sure we have a good enterprise content management policy in place with organizations, both big and small?
I thought we had a big enough topic anyway, but it's, it's a good one. Um, yeah. So a couple things, I guess. Document lifecycle management aside, because that's a whole another thing.
That's our next
Is
video.
yeah, put a pin in that one. Is yeah, having set rules for where things are stored and being able to convey those rules so people understand them are is a big thing. And I think that is definitely an issue because that the reliance on people to know about the answers of where stuff goes down to talking to people, which contravenes a whole plan of having, say, an intranet, right?
Yeah,
Because like the idea of an intranet is to get the right information to the right person at the right time, without hopefully without having to interact with somebody, right?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
so if so, what do you do in that particular case? I mean, we okay. We'll go back to a nice little tool that used to be and may still exist in some form, which is a content organizer,
excellent tool. Yeah,
which was a great tool. Which reminded me actually of tier one doc management systems back in the day in the early 2000s, where you kind of define classifications for a type of document, and you say, oh, okay, I'm putting this in. That's this type of document. You have certain sets of metadata. Fill it out, check it behind you, and you can find it again based on metadata and save searches and that to represent that information back to you. So those were the magic times, and now we've got many different places to put documents. Right before, yeah, like back in the day, one file system. Sorry, one large file management system, doc management system, classification plans, one big bucket, everything's tagged. Now we've got multiple different areas to tag, not tag. Where is it? Got to find it. Like, yeah,
yeah. Or
it's
sometimes
it's an
let
interesting.
let the system tag for us. Even is now part of our world.
Oh, yeah, and that's another topic, which is good, right? SharePoint syntax, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be another magic spot. I mean, it's all about finding the sweet spot between um, finding what you need to satisfy the requirements to return information back to people, and and what people will actually do to achieve that.
So I'll lead with a question, and I'll answer it myself first, and then give you time to think about it as well. But if if we had to sit down with the organization and let's say give them our top three tips when it comes to um, where you could potentially look at managing content in SharePoint. And I don't think that this is a right or wrong because I think you and I both realize that everything is fit for purpose and organization and culture. And we know that an old saying, culture eats everything for breakfast. So um, for me, I've always thought when it comes to storing information that anything that is unstructured or that doesn't really fit into, let's say, a known file plan or a known part of the business. For me, that was something that was quite easily stored inside of OneDrive because it was personal to me potentially most
Hmm.
times, and there was no place where I would normally go and try and find that information. And I think the reason why I'm thinking that if I'm thinking about the way that we do things as consumers online or even store things at home. There's we spoke about this before actually. If I look back home, I've got to have a special box where I store my passport and visas and medical records and all those birth certificate stuff. But everything else goes into the top drawer in the kitchen. So, so OneDrive is almost like a bit of the top drawer in the kitchen for me. It's that place where I can just throw stuff I need to find later. I might have some structure, might have a few things in the back of the drawer and some things in the front, and maybe, but that's my space for it. And I think if you have that unstructured world and you've got people just creating content and you don't really have a world for it, OneDrive's great, and it is great in the sense that I can still apply my company security policies and all the fun things that secures data, like data loss prevention and classification can still apply there. And I think if I had to give a second tip from experience is at least get a basic IA in place so that people know where to store things. And I think one of the old things that we used to do that I think people we still do, but we probably don't do it enough, is define a basic information architecture. I remember doing a session with somebody a couple of years ago, and they were describing IA, and somebody asked them, how would you define information architecture? And they used a lovely analogy. They said imagine walking into the house. If I asked you to find a spoon, the chances are you'd go to the kitchen and open the top drawer because
Mm.
that's where we store spoons. If I asked you for milk, it would most likely be in the fridge. If I asked you to get a shirt, you would go to a closet and take a shirt out. So it's the places that we naturally assume things should be. And I don't know if that's a lot of attention is paid to that. So I guess the next step around where do you store things is think about creating those logical places where people would expect to store and also expect to find content. So don't store a HR policy in the IT site. Would probably be
Hmm.
like a simple example.
Well, it
Like
depends, and
yeah,
into that end, I guess it depends if you need some document control around that.
yeah, yeah.
So if somebody has some ISO standards that they need to meet,
Exactly. I
then
think that that's
there's
the whole
something
that's the whole
over
fit for.
a layer over and above SharePoint. That you build some processes over and above the existing objects that are available to you
I think that
to
that's exactly
satisfy
what I said.
those.
It's very much fit for purpose. There is best practices, but not everything fits the same way. I guess the third thing would be to leveraging some of the new technologies that are actually out there at the moment, where there's a bucket load, and this is we can do a whole separate video on just what's available in the M stack from Microsoft with the AI capabilities on actually you start using some of that cleverness that's built into the tool and licensing that you've bought already um, to maybe sort out some of those little lost orphans that are floating around your organization and highlighting them so that you can actually work with them better. So those I
Yeah,
guess for me, those are the three that sort of spring to mind. Do you have any things on those, or maybe different, varying opinion on that, maybe?
yeah, no, there's yeah, those are good points. It's so for me as well with thinking about a personal space. Uh, what happens, I think about a couple things. One is permissioning and access
Yeah,
to content in there that people should have access to, and it's down to the individual to maintain that. So it's on them. The other part with that with permissions is really when they leave is depending on what content is in somebody's OneDrive. When they leave, it goes to the manager to basically it works like email does. When somebody leaves, the mailbox gets assigned to or can get assigned to the manager to filter through to make sure that they get all the relevant business related information out and put it in the right spaces so that they can continue. And it's a business continuity thing. So, like email, my comment for OneDrive is that they have to do that there too. So, where it's that convenience control kind of thing, not trying to control people with telling them where to put stuff. It's really, I guess, making people aware of both the individual that it relates to and their one up of going, you got to review all this stuff when I go, or if you don't, we might miss some good things that I might have made a document that I forgot to move that was part of a decent sized budget project,
yeah,
for example. And back in the day, there was a there. When I say back in the day, again, early 2000s, there were plenty of reports about the cost of not being able to find information. And I just keep having this thing niggling at the back of me, right? Now, it just reminding me of that report every time, going, put stuff in the right place because you remember this report you read 15 odd years ago. The problem hasn't gone away, but the conversations have.
yeah. So you're correct. The problem actually hasn't gone away. I mean, after all these years, the we still haven't really got that discipline in place. I
Oh,
wonder if is it a discipline thing? It's a strange that after I think I've been doing this for close to 15 years, that 15 years on from SharePoint 2007 on-prem,
hmm.
we're in the world of AI and machine learning, and we still can't get SharePoint search configured properly. Or we can, but there is still a problem that customers come to us with is that search is not working when we know search works. It's a tool. Tools work as well as you make them work.
Yeah,
It's strange we're still having that problem such a long way off.
well, and I'll quote somebody else that Agnes Molnar, follow
The
her on
great
LinkedIn.
Exmoor.
Caught up with her a couple times, and her business Search Explained is all about the issue you just brought up. And she's got a whole bit, the principle of her business is helping people find documents based on either search not being configured properly or potentially metadata not applied, which would help advance the representation and findability of information.
Yeah. Um,
So in everything she talks about is metadata.
I find it interesting that a lot, one of the quotes we get quite a lot, and we're getting a tad off topic on searches, but just very quickly, is many times you get the request is, I want my search to work like Google.
Absolutely.
And you go, absolutely. Do you know that Google employs thousands of people to make sure that you get the search results you need? How many people are you prepared to employ or get to manage to make sure your search is working well? Because that's the power of Google. It's not just the algorithm. It's the if you look at SharePoint search, it's actually looking at what people are searching for, making
It's like
sure
the
you've got to refine
moderators
the
and that.
get your moderators. If somebody's searching for HR policy, a lot make sure that when you have a top link to go to HR policies,
Yeah,
make sure you service that. And I think that's another thing that it is one of the things that we sometimes think it's the machines are amazing. They will do wonderful things, and they can, they can, but they only do it if we tell them to.
absolutely.
It's not iRobot.
Yeah, and
Thank goodness.
actually, the topic isn't too far off from storing things in OneDrive or not. And the reason it's not is because if you have areas that information could be stored in a business sense, say your team with say extra metadata, or maybe there's a document control system that has metadata, which if when documents live there and that is applied, then and you've configured your search properly, not even properly, but you might have made a site or just a page with using, say, the PnP modern search web parts, which allow you to
Excellent. Yeah.
recreate the search center, the on-prem search center functionality, right? Which helps you, right, limit the results that are returned. Um, it, it, it's connected because if you were to put something in your OneDrive which didn't have those tags, but it really should be living in another space, then not only is there a permission element that you have to personally control, but there's no tags again applied to the document of which may might should have been applied
Yeah.
in a different capacity,
And that
in which it would have helped surface that in search results. So it's kind of it's SharePoint's one of those things is everything's connected, right?
yeah. I guess and the PnP search is such a great example because it's a phenomenal tool. I mean, we've all been part of deployments of the tool. But what really makes it work well is the fact that you've got some classification happening in the background, that you have some structure potentially, that you or have at least defined content types for your most important document types. It helps that component actually shine as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I mean, there's certain topics that you kind of always want to filter information from. Well, it used to be my belief anyway. I still think it applies. Is what company the
yep.
piece of information relates to. Potentially, it's what department, what type of document is it. And I'm not, not Excel or what have you, but
Date
is it a
time
report?
frame.
Is it a form? Is it a letter? That kind of stuff. Um, and
But the
and
date time frame for me is I mean it's one of those critical ones. Just has to be there.
Oh, I mean that's
Uh,
out of the
yeah.
box already, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I say out of the box already, that's created modified.
Yeah.
But you might have another one that's equally as pertinent. Like for example, if it's a controlled doc system, you maybe the last modified date is the approved published date. Maybe it's
Exactly. Yeah.
different. And if it's different, then it's another date field and another custom field, which then needs to be promoted as a managed property, then surface through the refinement or area filters.
So if I can lead you on to maybe sort of the last topic, so we don't have a video that's way too long, people don't watch, um, is what is your thoughts and opinions on where Teams fits into the modern storage paradigm? Do we treat it differently because it's Teams, or do we just not treat it differently because it's still SharePoint in the background?
Okay. Um, Interesting. It's yeah. I wouldn't kind of. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, sorry,
What
I
is
cut
kind of
a
happened?
bit of
Okay, I'd say my initial standpoint was treat it
yeah,
the same.
agree
Reason why I
completely.
was
Yeah,
thinking that is, I mean, all your principles of data management and DLPs and search and findability apply. Where it's kind of different is that if there was a very specific use case, i.e., that control document system, that's a quite unique space and reason as why you would use it, and that would be separate from Teams. But essentially, well, and depending on how you make your team with your site with your templates. I mean, maybe it is that you might just go vanilla and not have any metadata,
yeah,
or maybe you've decided to apply some metadata by default on your libraries when you make new teams, right?
yeah. So I
And apply
guess
some templates to do so. And maybe some of those metadata fields are automatically populated, um, like defaults set based on, say, for example, is the team for a project, and then maybe one of the fields is what kind of team is this? It's for a project. Cool. I'm gonna smack project against all the documents by default. You don't have to tag it. It's just happening. Then it's like maybe one's a customer, and then that's happening. So I guess it depends on the scenario, and because it's quite open as to what can be done.
yeah, I 100% agree with you on the treated the same way. Like you said, fundamentally, it's a SharePoint site, so whatever rules you have in place at a tenant level are going to apply to it when it comes to security, data loss, information protection. That's all going to kick in, so that's fantastic. Um, and of course, we didn't have to worry about things like where you'd be storing Teams or from Yammer, or if it's going to potentially be files that you were storing from Dynamics into SharePoint. That wasn't a problem 10, 15 years ago. So I guess that from a planning point of view, it's just being aware of what your ecosystem looks like and what you can expect. The collaboration isn't just with the SharePoint owner anymore; it's with the Microsoft 365 solutions practice and potentially any applications that come from the outside world as well. So I think a good, definitely a couple of topics for future discussions would be to look at some of the ways that we can use Office 365 to manage content on our behalf, or at least throw a bit of intelligence at it. Um, Maybe that's our could be our next video potentially. But from a takeaways point of view, so what I'm if I heard you right, and I hope I did, it's OneDrive personal, not the place that we want to store the information that the rest of the company needs to see or the rest of my team needs to see on a day-to-day basis. Potentially even look at limiting some of the storage capability in OneDrive to get people to make sure they put things in the right place. And a
Yeah,
takeaway from my side is don't forget to look at your information architecture and actually look at some of the principles of lifecycle management for content.
yeah, very good. Yeah, and the minimizing the storage capacity is could be another topic too,
Yep.
based on auto versioning, co-authoring, stream video Teams meeting recordings are being stored there, and now with the ability for stream on SharePoint for information to be videos to be surfaced from your OneDrive too, if you've shared them properly.
Yeah. There's a lot in our world. Cool. Josh, thanks for taking the time to have a conversation, and we'll chat
Of course.
again on another topic very soon. Ciao, bro.
Thanks, Troy.
Kia ora.
That's fun.